Kryptonians. Krypton was a world that looked like paradise and collapsed like a bad play call. The planet orbited a red sun named Rao, which meant its people lived like humans in appearance but carried something no Earthling could imagine: cells built to store solar energy. Under Rao, that meant no powers. The moment one of them landed under Earth's yellow sun, the dial flipped. Flight, speed, strength, heat vision, ice breath, even tactile telekinesis in some stories. Suddenly, an ordinary Kryptonian became a living weapon. Their civilization matched the scale of their biology. Crystalline technology ran their cities, data stored in light itself. Society broke into 5 guilds: science, military, religion, artists, and labor. Each role was locked in place, with tradition enforced by their faith in Rao, the sun god. By Krypton's final age, they had even abandoned natural childbirth, preferring artificial wombs that fit the strict order of their culture. Then came the crack in the foundation. Krypton's science was unmatched, but the planet was dying. On June 16th, year 10,000 in Kryptonian record, their world tore itself apart. A few made it out: Kal-El, the infant who would become Superman; Kara, Zor-El, his cousin; Allura and Zor-El, her parents. Phantom Zone prisoners like General Zod waited to pounce. Even fragments like the bottled city of Kandor survived in strange ways. With survival came weakness. Kryptonite, shards of their broken world, turned into poison under Earth's sun. Red and orange starlight stripped them back to mortality. Magic bypassed their science-born defenses. Diseases from Krypton could still haunt them. For all their gifts, they carried fragility with them wherever they went. Earth ended up with a god in a cape, an immigrant who would define what heroism looked like. And behind him, ghosts of a fallen world kept surfacing, every rival and ally reminding us that Krypton may be gone, but it never really left. Rannians. Ran built its reputation on science. The planet stood out across the stars not for natural powers or gods, but for technology that could rival any empire. The crown jewel was the Zeta Beam, an energy system created by Sardath, one of Rand's greatest scientists. What started as a teleportation experiment reached Earth and pulled an unsuspecting archaeologist, Adam Strange, across light years. By accident, Rand had found its champion. The Zeta Beam didn't last forever. Each exposure faded, meaning Adam lived in cycles, fighting for Rand, falling in love with Alana, and then vanishing back to Earth until the next beam struck. That rhythm turned him into a mythic figure, caught between 2 worlds but tied forever to Rand's survival. Rannians themselves looked human, but their entire culture leaned on science to fill the gaps. Energy weapons, spacefaring ships, environmental shields, and their technology carried them through eras where brute strength wasn't enough. Yet that dependence also left them vulnerable. Every breakthrough painted a target on their planet, and in the DC universe, there were always bigger predators watching. No rivalry tested them more than their wars with Thanagar. Where Rand lived on intellect and invention, Thanagar thrived on military might and nth metal wings. Their clashes escalated into full-scale galactic wars, dragging in heroes from across the cosmos. Cities fell, entire populations shifted, and the Rand-Thanagar conflict became one of DC's most enduring interplanetary rivalries. Through it all, Rannians kept advancing. They pushed the limits of teleportation, refined weapons that could topple invaders, and leaned on Adam and Alana Strange as living symbols of resistance. Their story was about a civilization that refused to fold, even when surrounded by stronger worlds. Thanagarians. Thanagarian culture is rooted in conquest. Order, discipline, and expansion are woven into their society. Every citizen is raised with the same expectation: fight, serve, and defend the empire. That military machine made Thanagar a galactic power, but it also locked them into centuries of conflict. The rivalry with Rand turned their name into legend. When science-driven Rand and war-hardened Thanagar clashed, the galaxy paid the price. The Rand-Thanagar wars raged in different eras, tearing through star systems and dragging in cosmic players from across the DC universe. For Thanagar, these wars were proof of their identity as conquerors who refused to yield. Their most famous faces brought Thanagarian strength down to earth. Katar Hall, known as Hawkman, and Shira Hall, Hawkgirl or Hawkwoman, depending on the story, embodied the warrior spirit of their people. Reincarnation myths tied some versions of Hawkman and Hawkgirl to Earth's past, while others kept them as direct natives of Thanagar. In every version, the wings and the nth metal stayed constant, the ultimate symbol of their world. Thanagar's technology and armies made them a cosmic powerhouse, but their history shows the weight of constant war. From interstellar campaigns to bitter feuds with Ran, the Thanagarians stood as a reminder that a civilization built on conquest is always one battle away from collapse. New gods. Their story starts with Urgrund, home to the old gods. When that realm collapsed, it split in two. One half became New Genesis, bright and fertile. The other became Apocalypse, a burning machine of war. Out of that cataclysm rose a new race, genetically perfect, fueled by the Source, and armed with technology that could move them across galaxies in seconds. Life on New Genesis looked like peace. Highfather Isaiah ruled with order and unity, his people immortal, brilliant, and shielded by mother boxes and boom tubes. Across the void, Apocalypse burned under Darkseid. His armies were endless, his world was built on slavery, and his obsession was the anti-life equation, the formula that could bend every will in existence. Their rivalry was personal. When Steppenwolf killed Highfather's wife, the war reached a breaking point. To hold off the bloodshed, the two leaders agreed to a truce that still reads like myth. They swapped sons. Orion, Darkseid's child, was raised on New Genesis. Scott-free, Highfather's boy, grew up in the fire pits of Apocalypse. For a while, the deal held. Then Darkseid broke the pact and launched his crusades anyway, dragging Earth into the Fourth World's eternal fight. The new gods carry names that ripple across DC's biggest sagas. Orion, raging son of Darkseid, wielding the Astro Force and a mother box to hold his fury in check. Scott-free, escaping every chain Apocalypse could throw on him, transforming into Mr. Miracle, leader, and husband to Big Barda, once the fiercest of Darkseid's female furies. Lashina cracked her electrified whips for Apocalypse. Steppenwolf led raids across resource-rich worlds. Even Graven, another son of Darkseid, burned galaxies until his end. For all their power, they had a single vulnerability: Radion, a strange substance that could kill what nothing else could. But their greatest weakness was their feud. New Genesis and Apocalypse locked themselves in an endless war of light versus fire, a fight that spilled into Earth and shaped cosmic history. Martians. On Mars, two races rose side by side, and their war burned the planet into myth. The Green Martians lived as philosophers, red-eyed and calm, building a society centered on thought and balance. Across the desert stood their cousins, the White Martians, hairless, ruthless, born for conquest. The two weren't just rivals by choice. According to legend, the Guardians of the Universe altered Martian genetics 20,000 years ago, trying to rein in the fire-based power of their ancestors, the Burning Martians. What followed was civil war that lasted centuries. The Greens won, the Whites were exiled into an extra-dimensional still zone, and Mars carried scars it never healed from. The Martians were a powerhouse race, shape-shifting into anything, phasing through solid matter, turning invisible, reading minds, flying, regenerating. Every single ability that looked unfair in battle was natural to them. They were strong enough to stand with Kryptonians and fast enough to sweep entire armies, but every Martian, no matter the color, shared a fatal flaw: fire. The Guardians didn't just split their DNA, they imprinted fear. Haranmir's curse left them vulnerable, not just physically, but psychologically, freezing their will whenever flames appeared. Out of the wreckage came survivors who shaped Earth's history. John Johns, the Martian Manhunter, fled to Earth after his people fell. He carried every gift of his race but wore the loneliness of the last survivor. As one of the founding members of the Justice League, he became the quiet strategist behind gods and legends. Later, a white Martian named Megan Moores arrived, hiding her identity and posing as green. She eventually revealed herself and carved her own path as Miss Martian, ally of the Teen Titans and Young Justice. The Martians had everything to dominate the galaxy. Power stacked on power, yet fear held them in check, and war buried their world. Oans, Guardians of the Universe. At the center of the universe sits a tiny race that made itself the biggest authority. The Oans, once tall beings from the planet Maltus, evolved into short, blue-skinned immortals after moving to Oa. From there, they claimed the role of Guardians of the Universe. Their mission: police every corner of existence. Their weapon: the Green Lantern Core. With the central power battery glowing on Oa and rings fueled by willpower, the Oans believed they had created the ultimate defense against chaos. But history shows they made as many mistakes as victories. One of their earliest experiments with time ended in disaster. A guardian named Krona pushed too far, peering into creation itself and shattering it into a multiverse. His punishment was becoming pure energy, doomed to exist as the mistake that rewrote reality. Later, the Guardians built the Manhunters, a robotic police force. The machines turned on their makers, slaughtered entire civilizations, and left scars across space. Divisions soon tore the Oans apart. Some broke away to become controllers, obsessed with absolute order. Others became the Zamarons, embracing detachment. The Guardians that stayed kept the core alive, but even they clashed with each other over how far to push their authority. Their powers ran deeper than their small frames suggested: cosmic awareness, immortality, energy manipulation, even reality warping. They had the Book of Oo as their law, science cells to hold their worst enemies, and the Star Heart to contain dangerous magic. Yet their biggest weakness wasn't Radion or Kryptonite-level vulnerabilities, it was themselves. Every division, every failed experiment carried consequences that reshaped galaxies. Names like Appa Ali Apsa, who tried to build a mosaic world from stolen cities, or Ganthet, who broke ranks to create the Blue Lantern Corps, show how fragile their unity really was. And when the Anti-Monitor struck, killing Guardians by the dozens, their grip on the universe nearly slipped. For all their brilliance, the Oans proved one truth. When you crown yourself the referees of reality, every bad call becomes cosmic history. Amazons. 3,000 years ago, the gods looked down at the violence of men and made a counterweight. From the souls of women slain unjustly, they shaped new clay bodies under the sea. Out of that magic came the Amazons, immortal warriors guided by Artemis, Athena, Hestia, Demeter, and Aphrodite. Queen Hippolyta led them, marked by a golden girdle and the strength, speed, and durability of a demigod. At her side was her sister Antiope, who shared in the gifts of the goddesses and stood as co-ruler of the new nation. Their home became Themyscira, a floating island hidden in space and time. Aphrodite's law kept men away and granted eternal life to any Amazon who never left its borders. Even stepping off required passing magical barriers that wiped memories clean. Within those protections, they built a society of agriculture, diplomacy, martial training, and worship, a matriarchy in the purest form, where boys born from rare unions with outsiders were returned to their fathers and daughters were raised as Amazons. Unity didn't last forever. After Hercules deceived and exiled them, Antiope led a breakaway faction to Egypt, forming the Bana Migdal tribe. When they later returned, the two Amazon nations lived in uneasy truce, splitting the island between them. Themyscira's most famous daughter needs no introduction. Diana, shaped from clay and given life by the gods, grew into Wonder Woman, the first Amazon to step beyond their borders as an ambassador of peace. She renounced immortality to join the wider world, carrying her people's code into every battle. Others rose around her. Nubia, Hippolyta's elder twin, molded from darker clay, trained as a warrior before reclaiming her title as princess. Philippus, captain and scholar, trusted to lead armies and advise queens. And Mala, a core ally shaped through the contests that defined their culture. The Amazons were created as warriors, but their story is just as much about survival, standing eternal in a hidden kingdom, forever preparing for the moment when the outside world crashes against their gates. Atlanteans. Around 11,000 BCE, a massive deluge and a failed dome project pulled the great city beneath the sea. Survivors adapted, their metagenes reshaping them into something new. Atlanteans, a human offshoot capable of thriving under crushing depths. Gills gave them oxygen underwater, their bodies endured the weight of the ocean, and strength, speed, and durability made them warriors of the deep. Some inherited the gifts of Homo Magi, turning raw water into a weapon. Their flaw was simple but fatal: dehydration. Away from the sea, an Atlantean withered fast unless technology or magic held them stable. Beneath the waves, though, they became a force that reshaped history. Atlantis fractured into kingdoms, each with its own legacy. King Atlan's protective dome caused the sinking itself, a disaster that marked him forever. His brother Kordax led the Necrian Atlanteans in conquest until Atlantis sealed them under Antarctic glaciers. Mystics like Calcula and Magistra advanced Atlantis into eras of unmatched power, only to drag it back into feuds that scarred their world. Later, civil wars and the Sub-Diego transformation showed how quickly their empire could crack apart. From those waters came names that defined their lore. Nuidus Volco, the scientist and royal advisor, kept Atlantis afloat through both science and politics. Garth, later known as Tempest, mastered high-pressure combat and magic, serving as a bridge between worlds. Mira, from the kingdom of Zebel, became queen with hydrokinesis unmatched across history, able to harden water into blades and walls. Dolphin, a woman altered by alien science, returned to Atlantis with camouflaging scales and the strength of her adopted people. Atlanteans fought wars among themselves, fought wars against the surface, and once fought side by side with Amazons and humans to hold back Darkseid's invasion. For every fracture, they still carried one truth: when Atlantis rises, the ocean comes with it. Tamaraneans. They descend from feline-like ancestors who once worshipped the goddess Exhal on Okara before settling their own world. Their bodies became living solar batteries, converting ultraviolet radiation into raw energy. With that came super strength, durability, endurance, and flight. In the vacuum of space, they thrived, aging slower than humans and surviving conditions that would crush most species. And through lip-to-lip contact, they could instantly learn new languages, a trait as strange as it was useful. War pushed their evolution even further. The Scions, a race of sadistic genetic scientists, experimented on Tamaraneans and unlocked their ability to fire energy bolts from within. Star bolts became a signature weapon, made famous later by one Tamaranean princess. Their culture never separated strength from emotion. Every citizen trained as a warrior, but victory meant nothing without passion. They celebrated bonds of love, loyalty, and even heartbreak as sources of power. Unlike the rigid Oans or the cold Dominators, Tamaraneans treated feelings as fuel. Their society ran on a feudal system, each land ruled by nobles and tied together by a royal family that kept the planet unified. That unity collapsed during a century-long war with the Citadel. Betrayal came from within. Commander, eldest daughter of the throne, turned against her people. King Myander offered her younger sister Coriander as a hostage to end the conflict, but the deal led to enslavement. Coriander was taken, tortured, and experimented on before escaping to Earth and remaking herself as Starfire. The scars of Tamaran's wars reshaped the planet and nearly destroyed its people. But through every invasion and betrayal, Tamaraneans carried one constant truth. Their greatest weapon was the fire in their hearts that refused to burn out. Dominators. They are a yellow-skinned alien race marked by red circles that show their caste rank. The larger the circle, the higher the authority. Their society runs on a rigid hierarchy, and their obsession is control, especially of genetics. No species fascinated them more than humanity because of the unpredictable metagene that sparks superpowers. To the Dominators, Earth was a laboratory that had to be managed, exploited, or destroyed. They backed that fear with science and war machines, starships capable of warp travel, transphasic cannons, biobullets, tachyon disruptors, even planet-killing weapons called Star Strikers. They engineered super soldiers from metahuman DNA and unleashed AI viruses to devastate entire systems. With their tech, they rewrote biology on a galactic scale. The most infamous strike came during the invasion event. Leading an alien alliance, the Dominators descended on Earth to neutralize metahumans. When the invasion faltered, one Dominator unleashed the gene bomb, a weapon that crippled countless heroes by targeting their metagene directly. It nearly ended Earth's defenders, but the fallout turned against them. The culprit was imprisoned by his own people, and Earth's heroes cracked the science to reverse the bomb's effects. The Dominion never let go of its ambitions. Their plots stretched for millennia, from schemes to destroy the moon to 21st century campaigns where they unleashed techno-virus soldiers and colossal war machines against the legion of superheroes. Even their home wasn't safe. At one point, Stero the Conqueror seized their world, forcing them to fight for survival under their own chains. For all their intellect and military strength, the Dominator's legacy is marked by failure. Every attempt to cage Earth's potential has ended in collapse, yet their fear of the metagene lingers, and that's it. Undeniably, each of these civilizations left marks that ripple across time. Gods, warriors, and scientists who changed the game forever. But if one race was destined to leave the ultimate legacy, who would you bet on? Comment down below. As you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.